6 years after he vanished from her life, Mafia boss Nicholas DeLuca walked into Ava Bennett's quiet Providence Café and froze at the sight of a 5-year-old boy behind the counter. The child had his eyes. Outside rain streaked the windows. Inside the espresso machine, hissed sugar packets lay in careful rows, and Ava felt the safe little world she had built begin to crack beneath her feet. She had survived pregnancy, loneliness, and 6 years of silence without him. But Nico had not come to ask for forgiveness. Someone dangerous had discovered her secret, and the photograph in his coat proved her son was already being watched. This is not only a story about forbidden love. It is about the price of protection, the damage caused by silence, and whether a broken family can become whole without surrendering its freedom. Stay until the end, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The photograph remained on the counter between them. Someone else knows. The words seemed to settle into every corner of the cafe, beneath the soft music, beneath the hiss of the espresso machine, beneath the rain tapping against the windows. Ava stared at the image of Owen leaving school. His backpack hung crooked over one shoulder. His right shoelace dragged along the pavement. He was smiling at someone outside the frame, unaware that a stranger had been close enough to capture the small gap between his front teeth. She reached for the photograph. Nico placed 2 fingers over its edge. Do not touch it without gloves. Ava looked up at him. For one dangerous second, the fear inside her gave way to anger. You brought it into my cafe. It was already handled before it reached me. And you think that makes it safe? No. His answer came quietly. That is why I am here. The hallway door opened behind Ava. Owen stepped out, drying his hands on the front of his apron. Mom, the soap is almost gone. Ava turned so quickly that her hip struck the counter. I know, sweetheart. Go sit with Rachel for a minute. Rachel looked at her from beside the coffee grinder. Her face was pale, but she nodded immediately. Owen glanced at Nico again. The curiosity in his expression was innocent and unguarded. Nico did not move. Only his eyes followed the boy. Is he a customer? Owen asked. Ava forced a smile. Yes. He did not answer about the sugar. Nico looked down at the neat rows of white and brown packets. Brown, he said. Owen considered him. That is what old people choose. Rachel made a sound that might have been a cough. Something shifted near Nico's mouth. It was not quite a smile, but Ava remembered it. She hated that she remembered it. Owen, she said, take your muffin to the back table. Can I have the blueberry one? Yes. The big one? Yes. He walked toward Rachel with the solemn satisfaction of a child who had successfully negotiated something important. Ava waited until he was out of hearing range. Then she leaned across the counter. You do not look at him like that. Nico's face became still again. Like what? Like you have already decided he belongs to you. His gaze returned to hers. I have not decided anything. You called him your son. He is. Biology does not give you the right to walk in here and claim 6 years you did not live. The rain struck harder against the windows. A customer at the table near the front pretended to read his phone. Another couple had stopped speaking entirely. Ava looked around the room and realized that every person in the cafe could feel the pressure gathering between them. She picked up the photograph with a napkin and slid it beneath the counter. Then she turned to Rachel. Can you close the register? Rachel blinked. It is not even 9. We are closing. What should I tell people? Plumbing problem. Rachel looked toward the perfectly functioning sink. Right. Plumbing. Ava faced the room. I am sorry, everyone. We need to close early today. There were disappointed expressions, confused glances, chairs scraping against old wood. Ava apologized twice. She handed out vouchers for free coffee she could not afford to give away. Nico stood beside the counter without speaking. His presence changed the room. People moved around him without being told to. They avoided looking directly at him. Even those who did not recognize his face seemed to understand that he was a man accustomed to space being made. Ava recognized the old instinct in everyone around him. She had once felt it too. The difference was that she had mistaken it for safety. When the last customer left, Rachel locked the front door and turned the sign to closed. Owen sat at the back table with crumbs scattered across his apron. Ava crouched beside him. Elena is going to pick you up from school today, but you always pick me up, I know. Are you sick? No. He studied her face. Children noticed the truths adults believed they had hidden. Is it because of that man? Ava glanced toward Nico. He had moved to the far end of the counter, giving them distance. His hands rested at his sides. He looked toward the window, but she knew he was listening. No, Ava said. There is a problem with the pipes. Owen looked toward the ceiling. Are they leaking? Not yet. Then why are we closing? Because I need to fix them before they do. He thought about this and accepted it with the practical seriousness he gave most things. Can Elena bring me here later? We will see. That answer did not satisfy him, but the second half of his muffin distracted him long enough for Ava to stand. She called Elena from the storage room. Elena answered after one ring. Ava, I need you to take Owen today. There was a pause. What happened? Ava pressed her fingers against the cool metal shelf. Something came up at the cafe. What kind of something? The kind I cannot explain over the phone. Elena became silent. She had been part of Ava's life long enough to know that Ava did not ask for help easily. She also knew there were parts of Ava's past that had never been offered for discussion. I will get him, Elena said. Do I bring him home afterward? Take him to your apartment. Is he safe? Ava looked through the narrow storage room window. Nico stood exactly where she had left him. His coat was still buttoned. Rain darkened one shoulder from the brief walk between the car and the cafe. Through the glass door, Ava could see two men waiting beneath the awning across the street. She had spent 6 years making sure men like that never stood near her son. I am going to make sure he is, she said. Elena did not ask another question. 20 minutes later, a gray sedan stopped outside. Elena came in wearing a red raincoat and carrying an umbrella large enough for 3 people. She hugged Owen, listened to his detailed explanation about the plumbing, and looked once at Nico. Her expression changed. She recognized the name before Ava spoke it. Maybe she had seen his photograph in the newspaper. Maybe she had heard it from old Providence families who lowered their voices when they talked about the DeLucas. Elena said nothing. She took Owen's hand. At the door, Owen looked back at Nico. You still did not drink your coffee. Nico glanced toward the untouched cup Ava had made before her life changed. I will next time. Ava's hand tightened around the edge of the counter. There would be no next time unless she allowed it. Owen nodded as if an agreement had been made, then disappeared beneath Elena's umbrella. The dark blue door closed behind them. The bell gave one final sound. The cafe felt larger without him. It also felt empty in a way Ava had never noticed before. Rachel remained beside the register. You want me to stay? Ava looked at her. Rachel was 27, loyal, curious, and terrible at pretending not to be frightened. No, go home. I can help. You already are. Ava opened the register and counted out enough money to cover the full shift. Rachel tried to refuse it. Ava pressed the bills into her hand. I am not asking. Rachel looked toward Nico. Then she leaned closer to Ava. Should I call someone? Ava almost laughed. There was no one to call. That had been the point of the last 6 years. I will call you tonight. Rachel hesitated. If you do not, I am coming back with my brother. Your brother is 17. He is very tall. Despite everything, Ava smiled. Rachel hugged her quickly and left. When the door locked again, silence settled over Harbor and Pine. Nico removed his coat. Beneath it, he wore a black shirt with the sleeves buttoned at his wrists. No tie. No visible weapon. He looked less like the man whose name appeared in federal investigations and more like the man who had once stood barefoot in Ava's kitchen trying to make pasta sauce from a recipe he refused to read. That memory struck with such clarity that she had to look away. She moved behind the counter and shut off the espresso machine. The familiar hiss faded. Without it, the cafe seemed to hold its breath. Back room, she said. Nico followed her past the pastry case and through the narrow doorway beside the kitchen. The storage room was not made for confrontation. Boxes of paper cups rose against one wall. Bags of coffee beans filled the shelves. The industrial refrigerator gave off a steady hum. Ava stood on one side of the steel preparation table. Nico remained on the other. It was the closest thing she had to a border. Start at the beginning. Nico placed both hands on the table. A man named Malcolm Rourke has been moving weapons and people through the East Coast for years. He controls routes from Baltimore to Boston, people Nico's jaw tightened, women, runaways, migrants who believe they are being taken to legitimate work. Ava felt something cold move beneath her skin. And you do business with him, no. You expect me to believe the head of the DeLuca family suddenly developed a conscience. I expect you to believe that some lines still exist even in my world. She gave him a hard look. Your world sent a man into my apartment and told me loving you could get me killed. Nico did not flinch. I know. No, you know the sentence. You do not know what happened after it. His eyes held hers. Then tell me. The invitation made her angrier than denial would have. She turned away and pressed both palms against the counter beneath the storage room window. Outside, rainwater moved down the glass in crooked lines. Tell me about Rourke first. Nico took a slow breath. A year ago, he began using smaller operators to move cargo through Providence. I closed 2 warehouses he depended on. 3 months later, I stopped a shipment at the docks. You stopped it how you do not want details. You walked into my cafe with a surveillance photograph of my son. Do not decide what I want. For a moment, the man she remembered returned in the set of his shoulders. Nico had always disliked being challenged in front of other people. Ava had once been the only person who could do it without consequence. He looked down at the steel table. The shipment never reached the men waiting for it. The weapons were taken. The women inside the second truck were released. Ava stared at him. How many 11? The refrigerator hummed between them. Where are they now? Safe. You use that word very easily. No, he said. I do not. His voice changed on the final word. Ava noticed, but she did not soften. What did Rourke do? He lost money. More importantly, he lost credibility. Men like him can survive financial damage. They cannot survive looking weak, so he came after you. He started by following one of my cars. Then he sent photographs. Nico reached into his coat, which he had laid over a chair, and removed a second envelope. He opened it carefully. Inside were 6 photographs. A restaurant owned by Nico's cousin. An elderly man leaving church. A woman holding the hand of a teenage girl. Ava standing outside Harbor and Pine before sunrise. Owen crossing the street beside her. The final image showed Ava locking the apartment entrance at night. Her face was clear. So was the number above the door. Ava could hear her own breathing. When did you receive these 3 days ago? And you waited until today I confirmed who had taken them. I moved people into position around the school and your apartment. Then I came here. You put armed men near Owen before speaking to me. I put them near the men watching Owen. You do not get to make decisions about him. I understand. The lack of resistance stopped her. Nico used to argue until a room belonged to him. Now he stood quietly while she struck at him with every sharp edge she had carried for 6 years. Ava looked again at the photographs. How did Rourke find me, I do not know yet. That is not good enough, no. And how did you not find me? His expression changed. It was small, but she saw it. A tightening at the corner of his eyes. A breath held too long. I looked. Ava laughed once. There was no humor in it. You looked. For 3 years. I own a cafe with my name on the lease. You used Bennett. It is my name. You were Callahan when I knew you, when you knew me. The words cut between them. Nico lowered his eyes. Ava walked past him and opened the storage room door. She needed air, even if the only air available still smelled like coffee and wet coats. She entered the cafe and stood in the center of the room. Morning light filtered through rain and turned everything gray. The mismatched chairs had been collected over years. 1 came from a church sale. 2 had belonged to a diner that closed after 40 years. Owen had painted a tiny blue star beneath the seat of his favorite chair where no customer could see it. The menu board above the counter was written in Ava's handwriting. The front door was the color Owen had chosen, dark blue, almost black. He had stood on a folded newspaper with a paintbrush in both hands, leaving blue fingerprints along the frame. Ava had not wiped them away. Harbor and Pine was not just a business. It was evidence. Evidence that she had survived without Nico. Evidence that she could create something no one had given her. Evidence that leaving him had not destroyed her even on the nights when she feared it might. You want to know why you could not find me? She asked. Nico stood in the doorway behind her. I moved to New Hampshire first, then Connecticut. I changed apartments whenever a car stayed outside too long. I worked for cash. I avoided hospitals until I had no choice. I did not put photographs online. I did not tell anyone who Owen's father was. She turned. I made myself difficult to find because the last person from your world who found me told me I was a liability. Nico's face went still. Vincent. Yes. The name opened the door to a night Ava had spent years trying to close. 6 years earlier, Boston had been buried under February snow. Ava had waited in her apartment wearing the green dress Nico liked. Dinner had gone cold by 9. By 10, she had called him 6 times. At 11, someone knocked. She had expected Nico. Vincent Hale stood outside instead. He wore a dark overcoat dusted with snow. 2 men waited at the bottom of the stairs. Ava had met Vincent before. He had attended family dinners and stood beside Nico during meetings. He smiled often without warmth. That night he did not smile at all. "Where is Nicholas?" she asked. "Handling a problem." "What happened?" "A problem." Vincent entered without waiting to be invited. He placed a folder on her kitchen table. Inside were photographs of burned cars, shattered windows, and a man on a hospital bed with half his face covered in bandages. Ava closed the folder. "What is this?" "The truth Nicholas keeps away from you. He does not keep things from me." Vincent looked toward the untouched dinner. "He kept tonight from you." Ava reached for her phone. Vincent placed his hand over it. "Listen carefully." She looked at his hand, then at his face. He removed it. "The DeLuca family is at war. Nicholas inherited enemies with his father's chair. Those enemies are looking for anything that makes him hesitate. I am not part of his business. That is exactly why you are useful." Ava remembered the refrigerator running behind her, the candle burning down on the table, snow moving past the window in thick white sheets. She remembered asking the question that had followed her for 6 years. "Did Nico send you?" Vincent adjusted the cuffs of his coat. "He does not have time to manage your feelings." It was not an answer. At the time it had felt like one. Vincent leaned closer. "Anyone Nicholas loves becomes an address his enemies can visit." Ava stared at him. "If you stay, men will use you to reach him. If you become the reason he hesitates, people will die. Perhaps you. Perhaps him." He left the folder on her table. Ava called Nico 11 times. No answer. She waited until dawn. Then she packed one suitcase. What she did not know was that Nico had been lying unconscious in a private clinic after an ambush near the harbor. What Nico did not know was that Vincent had visited her at all. Ava learned she was pregnant 2 weeks later in the restroom of a bus station outside Hartford. She had taken the test because the smell of coffee made her sick. 2 pink lines appeared before she had time to prepare herself. She sat on the closed toilet seat with her coat still buttoned and listened to strangers wash their hands outside the stall. Her first thought was Nico. Her second was the folder on the kitchen table. 3 days later, a black sedan followed her from work. It remained behind her through 4 turns. She did not wait to learn who had sent it. She left Connecticut before sunrise. The years after that did not arrive as a dramatic sequence. They arrived as small emergencies, a shift she could not miss, a fever she could not afford, a landlord who raised the rent, a baby who refused to sleep unless his hand rested against her throat. Ava worked breakfast at a hotel and evenings in a bakery. She learned to carry Owen against her chest while balancing grocery bags in both hands. She learned which laundromat stayed open all night. She learned that panic could live inside a person for so long it began to feel like instinct. When Owen was born, Elena sat outside the hospital room because Ava's mother could not reach Providence until the next morning. Ava held her son alone as the sky became pale beyond the blinds. He opened his eyes, gray-green. For one moment she almost called Nico. Then Owen wrapped his fingers around hers. Ava decided that whatever she had lost, he would not be used to recover it. Back in the cafe, Nico stood without moving. The rain had softened. Ava folded her arms across her chest. "You had houses, doctors, men who answered when you called. I had a diaper bag, $40, and a phone battery that died while Owen had a fever of 103. Nico's face had gone pale. "I did not know." "That does not erase it, no. I gave birth without you." His eyes closed briefly. "I know. No, Nico, you know now. There is a difference." He looked at her again. She saw grief there, but grief did not entitle him to comfort. "I cannot change those years," he said. "Correct. I cannot ask you to forgive what I did not understand. You abandoned me whether you understood it or not. Yes." The word came without defense. Ava had prepared herself for excuses, for explanations about war duty, loyalty, survival. His agreement left her with nowhere to direct the next strike. Nico stepped toward the counter, then stopped before entering the space behind it. He remembered that it was hers. "I am not here to claim Owen," he said. "I am not here to take him from you. I am here because Rourke knows he exists, and because every hour we spend fighting about the past is an hour his people can use." Ava's eyes narrowed. "You do not speak to him. I will not. You do not take him anywhere. I will not. No armed men inside this cafe while he is here." Nico hesitated. Ava's voice hardened. "That is not negotiable. Then they stay outside. You do not tell anyone he is your son. I already restricted the information. That was not permission. No, you do not put your name on his school records. You do not send money. You do not buy him things. You do not have lawyers contact me." Nico held her gaze. "All right, and you do not call him our son." Pain moved across his face. This time she let herself see it. "All right," he said again. Ava looked toward the small stool behind the counter. One brown sugar packet remained where Owen had dropped it. Nico followed her gaze. "When this is over," he said, "I want the chance to know him." Her throat tightened. "Explain the protection plan." Nico pulled out the chair opposite her. This time he waited until she sat before taking his seat. The gesture was small. 6 years earlier, Ava might not have noticed it. Back then, Nico had entered rooms as though every chair, every door, every silence already belonged to him. Now he rested his hands on the table and waited for permission to speak. "2 people near the school," he said. "1 near the cafe. Another vehicle covering your apartment." Ava kept her eyes on him. How close enough to intervene, far enough that Owen should not notice, should not. "He is observant. He is 5. He noticed I had not touched my coffee." Ava looked toward the cup still sitting near the register. The foam had collapsed. A thin brown line marked the inside of the porcelain. That does not mean he should grow up with strangers following him. No child should. But yours would. Nico accepted the blow without moving. Ava leaned back in her chair. "What happens when I take him to school? A car follows at a distance. When I go to the grocery store, the same. When he visits Elena, we cover the building. And if I decide to leave Providence, you tell me where you are going." "No." Nico's gaze sharpened. Ava saw the old command rising in him, the instinct to answer resistance with control. She waited. His jaw tightened once. Then he said, "You tell Gabriel." "Who is Gabriel?" "The man responsible for your immediate security. I am not reporting my movements to one of your soldiers. He is not a soldier." "What is he?" Nico paused. "A man I trust." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters right now." Ava stood. The chair legs scraped against the floor. "Then we are finished." Nico rose immediately, but he did not reach for her. "Ava, no. You came into my cafe and told me my son is being watched. Then you offered a protection plan built around men I do not know, cars I cannot identify, and rules I am expected to obey. You are not expected to obey me. That is what this feels like." His expression changed, not anger, recognition. Nico looked toward the front windows where the rain had begun to fade into mist. "When my father wanted someone protected, he said he removed their choices. He moved them without warning. He took their phones. He decided who they could speak to and where they could sleep." Ava folded her arms. "And you learned from him?" "Yes." The honesty stopped her again. Nico continued, "I am trying not to repeat it. Trying is not enough. No. Then give me something better." He looked back at her. "You will have Gabriel's number. You can contact him directly. He will not enter your home or your cafe without permission, unless there is an immediate threat. You choose your route to school. You choose where you stay. If you tell him to change a guard, he changes the guard. And if I tell him to leave, he will move farther away. That is not leaving. No." Ava stared at him. At least he did not insult her by pretending she had complete freedom. Danger had already taken that. "Will they carry guns?" "Yes." "Near Owen?" "Yes." Her stomach turned. Nico lowered his voice. The men watching him are already armed. The cafe seemed colder. Ava walked to the front door and looked through the glass. Two men remained beneath the awning across the street. One spoke into a phone, the other watched passing cars without appearing to watch anything at all. She had seen men like them before. When she was with Nico, they had been part of the background. Dark coats, quiet voices, cars waiting at curbs. She had convinced herself they were ordinary because loving Nico required certain acts of imagination. Now every hidden hand looked like a threat. Which one is Gabriel? Neither. Where is he? Nico glanced towards the intersection. A man in a dark raincoat stood beneath the red sign of the pharmacy. He held a folded newspaper in one hand. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes moved from the cafe to the parked cars and back again. Ava would not have noticed him without being told. That is Gabriel, yes. How long has he been there? Since before I entered. Ava looked at Nico. You had men watching me before I agreed. I had men watching the people watching you. That distinction matters to you more than it does to me. I know. She hated how often he said those words now. She hated that a part of her believed him. Nico took a business card from his wallet and wrote a number on the back. No names, he said. No company. This connects directly to Gabriel. Ava accepted the card but did not put it away. What happens if someone comes near Owen? Gabriel calls you. If there is no time, he acts. What does that mean? It means Owen comes home. And the person who approached him, Nico's face became unreadable. Ava understood the answer. She slipped the card into her apron pocket. You do not make a scene at his school. No, you do not frighten his teachers. No, you do not let him see violence. Nico held her gaze. I will do everything I can. That is not a promise. It is the truth. Ava looked away. She wanted certainty. Nico had brought her something colder and more useful. For the next 4 days, life continued in a shape that almost resembled normal. Ava opened Harbor and Pine before sunrise. She ground coffee beans while Providence remained dark beyond the windows. She arranged pastries in the glass case. She counted the register twice. Owen sat at the small table near the kitchen eating cereal and drawing dinosaurs with wings. At 7:30 they left for school. The first morning Ava saw nothing. The second morning she noticed a black sedan half a block behind them. It stopped when she stopped. It turned when she turned. The driver wore a baseball cap and never looked directly at her. On the third morning, a woman in a red scarf stood near the school crossing. She carried a paper cup and watched the traffic. Ava saw her again that afternoon. The woman never spoke. She never came closer. But the knowledge of her presence pressed against Ava's skin. Owen noticed Ava looking over her shoulder. Did you lose something? No. Then why do you keep looking back? Ava tightened her grip on his hand. I thought I heard someone call my name. No one did. You are probably right. I usually am. She smiled because he expected her to. That night after Owen fell asleep, Ava sat on the bathroom floor with her back against the tub. The apartment was quiet. She could hear the refrigerator in the kitchen and the occasional rush of tires on the wet street below. For 6 years, silence had meant safety. Now, silence felt like the pause before glass broke. Her phone vibrated beside her. A message from an unknown number appeared. Are you both home? Ava stared at it. She knew who had sent it. Yes. The reply came less than a minute later. Lock the window in the living room. Her body went cold. Ava stood so quickly that her shoulder struck the towel rack. She hurried into the living room. The window was open 2 inches. She had left it that way while cooking dinner. She closed it and turned the lock. Then she called Nico. He answered before the second ring. Who can see my window, Gabrielle? From where the building across the street. Ava pulled the curtain shut. You said they would not watch inside my home. He saw the window was open. He saw enough to know which room it was. Ava. No. Do not calm me down. I am allowed to be angry. Yes. Stop agreeing with me. There was silence on the line. Then Nico said, Would you rather I lie? The question sounded tired. Not sharp, not defensive. Ava pressed her free hand against her forehead. In the bedroom, Owen shifted beneath his blankets. No, she said quietly. I will tell Gabriel to watch the entrance only. What if the window matters? I will let you decide. She closed her eyes. This was the impossible part. Every boundary she demanded created another place danger could enter. Tell him to keep watching, she whispered. Nico did not sound victorious. All right. She ended the call and remained beside the dark window. Across the street, one upstairs room was unlit. A figure moved behind the glass. The next morning, a man Ava did not recognize sat at the table nearest the cafe door. He arrived at 6:45. He ordered black coffee. He wore a navy sweater beneath a gray coat and opened a newspaper without reading the first page. Ava poured his coffee. She set it down. He thanked her politely. He returned the next morning, then the morning after that. On the third day, Ava carried his cup to the table and remained standing. You are Gabriel. The man turned one page. That depends. On what? Whether Nicholas told you my name. He did. Gabriel looked up. He was younger than Ava expected. Early 30s, perhaps. His face was calm, ordinary enough to disappear in a crowd. His eyes were not ordinary. They measured doors, windows, hands, and distances without appearing to move. Ava nodded toward the newspaper. You have been reading the same sports section for 3 days. I do not like sports. Then why choose that section? It has larger photographs. Ava almost smiled. You work for Nico. I work for myself. Does he pay you? Yes. Then you work for Nico. Gabriel folded the newspaper. I am here because someone photographed your son. The answer stripped away the humor. Ava looked toward the counter. Owen was helping Rachel place napkins into metal holders. He does not know. He should not. I do not want him frightened. Neither do I. She studied Gabriel's face. Do you have children? No. Then you do not know what I want. No, he said. But I know what Nicholas wants. Ava's expression hardened. Gabriel continued before she could answer. He wants the boy to finish kindergarten without learning why men like me exist. Something in his voice made her pause. Not affection exactly, loyalty. Ava placed the coffee in front of him. I am not charging you. That is unnecessary. I am not going to pretend you are a customer. Gabriel considered her. Then he nodded once. Thank you, Miss Bennett. Call me Ava. I should not. Why? Because distance helps me do my job. The answer unsettled her. She went back behind the counter. For the first time since Nico entered the cafe, Ava felt safer. She resented the feeling immediately. Nico continued sending one message each evening. Are you safe? Ava answered yes. Nothing more. On Friday night, Owen developed a cough. By midnight, his temperature reached 101. Ava sat beside him with a cool cloth and a bottle of grape medicine he refused to swallow. Her phone vibrated. How is he? She stared at the message. She had not told Nico Owen was sick. Then she remembered Gabriel had seen her leave the pharmacy. Fine. Mild fever. A minute passed. Does he take medicine? He hates grape. The reply came quickly. So did I. Ava looked toward Owen. His cheeks were flushed. His dark hair stuck to his forehead. For years, she had studied every part of him and wondered which pieces belonged to a man she had trained herself not to remember. The gray-green eyes, the serious expression, the stubborn refusal to admit discomfort. She typed before she could reconsider. What worked for you, honey, afterward? Never juice? The taste stays longer with juice. Ava gave Owen a spoonful of honey. He stopped complaining. She did not tell Nico that his advice had worked. The following Wednesday, the sky was clear for the first time in days. Ava closed the cafe at 2:30 and walked toward St. Matthew's Elementary. Children's voices floated over the brick wall surrounding the playground. A school bus pulled away from the curb. Parents gathered near the entrance. Everything looked ordinary. Then Ava saw the man in the brown coat. He stood inside the school lobby speaking to the secretary. A clipboard rested beneath one arm. He wore a visitor badge, but it had been clipped upside down. Ava slowed. The man turned slightly. His shoes were wet. The sidewalks had been dry all day. Gabriel appeared beside her. She had not heard him approach. His hand settled lightly against the middle of her back. Keep walking. Ava's heart struck hard against her ribs. Who is he? Do not look again. Where is Owen inside his classroom? How do you know I checked? The man in the lobby looked through the glass doors. His eyes met Gabriel's. The moment lasted less than a second. Then the stranger smiled at the secretary, handed back the visitor badge, and walked toward a side exit. Gabriel touched the device beneath his coat. "Take the second hallway. Ms. Palmer is waiting for you." "Where are you going? Get your son." Gabriel crossed the street without running. The man in the brown coat disappeared around the corner. Ava entered the school through the side door. Her hands had begun to shake. She hated them for it. She found Owen sitting at a small desk beside his teacher, drawing a green dinosaur with wings. He looked up and smiled. "Mom, Mrs. Palmer says dinosaurs probably had feathers." Ava crossed the room and pulled him against her. He made a surprised sound. "You are squeezing too hard." She loosened her arms, but did not let go. "Sorry, did you fix the pipes?" The question nearly broke her. "Yes," she whispered. "I fixed them." That evening, Nico arrived at Harbor and Pine after closing. Ava unlocked the door and stepped back. He entered alone. His coat was open. His expression was controlled, but a vein moved near his temple. "There was a man at Owen's school." "I know." The calm answer ignited everything she had held down since the lobby. "You know, Gabriel called me. My son is not a report passed between your men. Our son was approached by someone connected to Rourke." The words came out before Nico could stop them. Ava went still. Nico's face changed. "Owen," he corrected. "I meant Owen. You meant what you said, yes. You have not earned the word, no." Ava turned away, fighting for control. "He was inside the school. He never reached the classroom. That is supposed to comfort me, no. Then tell me why this is happening." Nico took a breath. "I stopped Rourke from moving weapons through the Providence docks. There were people in one of the trucks. 11 women. I know. I gave records from the operation to federal investigators." Ava looked back at him. "You informed on him, through another party, and now he wants revenge. He wants leverage." "My child!" Nico's voice hardened. "I will not let him touch Owen. You keep saying that as though your certainty can stop a bullet." The words struck him. Ava stepped closer. "You do not get credit for standing against monsters if becoming their enemy leads them to my son." Nico's eyes remained on hers. For several seconds, the cafe was silent. Then he said, "You are right." Ava had wanted him to argue. She had wanted somewhere to place the terror. Instead, he stood before her and accepted responsibility for a danger he had tried to prevent. She pressed both hands against the counter. "I cannot do this alone." The admission was so quiet she almost hoped he had not heard it. Nico did. "You do not have to. That does not mean you take over." "I know." Ava looked at him, at the man who had once disappeared behind silence, at the father Owen did not know was standing 10 feet from the stool where he arranged sugar packets. "One meeting," she said. Nico did not move. "With Owen, at the cafe, Saturday morning. You come alone?" "Yes, no gifts." "All right, you are an old friend. Nothing more." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "You do not touch him unless he reaches for you. I understand. You do not promise him anything." Nico looked toward the small apron hanging beside the kitchen door. "I understand." Ava walked him to the entrance. When she unlocked the door, something white lay against the threshold. An envelope. Nico saw it at the same time she did. He moved in front of her. "Do not touch it." He pulled a folded handkerchief from his coat and lifted the envelope carefully. There was no name on the front. Inside was a photograph. Owen slept beside the living room window, one hand beneath his cheek. The image had been taken from outside the apartment. Across the back, 4 words had been written in black ink. "A locked door is not protection." Ava could not feel the floor beneath her feet. Nico stared at the photograph. When he looked up, the grief in his face was gone. What remained was the man Providence feared. Nico folded the photograph once and slipped it into the inside pocket of his coat. The movement was controlled, almost gentle. That frightened Ava more than anger would have. "Wake Owen," he said. Her eyes snapped to his. "No. Ava, they were outside your apartment. You are not taking him anywhere. I am not taking him. You are." She stood between Nico and the door, though neither of them had moved toward it. "Where there is an apartment above Bellamy Books on Carpenter Street. The owner is someone I trust. It has 2 exits, reinforced locks, and no connection to the DeLuca name. You already prepared a place." "I prepared several." The answer made her stomach turn. "Nico saw it. I did not prepare them for you. They exist because people sometimes need somewhere safe. People from your world. Sometimes. Ava looked at the photograph again in her mind. Owen asleep beside the window, his mouth slightly open, one hand under his cheek, the blue blanket her mother had sewn folded around his legs. Someone had stood in the dark and watched him breathe. Her apartment no longer felt like home. It felt exposed. She pulled her phone from her apron pocket and called Elena. This time, her neighbor did not ask questions. "I will keep him awake," Elena said. "He can sleep in the car." "No. Do not leave your apartment until I call again." Ava heard the fear in her own voice. Elena heard it too. All right. Ava ended the call. Nico was already speaking quietly into his phone. No sirens, no visible cars. Clear Carpenter Street and check the bookstore from the roof down. He listened. Gabriel takes Elena's building. No one moves the boy until he is there. The boy. Ava hated the distance in the phrase. She also understood why he used it. Nico ended the call and looked at her. "You choose how we do this." She folded her arms tightly. "You just gave orders. To prepare, not to move you. What are my choices? You and Owen stay with Elena while my people secure the building. You go to the apartment above the bookstore. Or I take you outside Providence until Rourke is contained. I am not leaving the city. Then the bookstore. You do not come inside." Nico's gaze held hers. "All right. You do not keep a key." "All right. No cameras inside, none. No armed men in the hallway where Owen can see them. They will use the rear stairwell." Ava swallowed. "And if I say I want to leave, you leave?" The answer came without hesitation. She looked at him for several seconds. "Call Gabriel." 20 minutes later, Ava stood in Elena's apartment while Owen slept curled at one end of the sofa. A cartoon played silently on the television. The changing light moved across his face in shades of blue and gold. Elena sat beside him with one hand resting near his ankle. Gabriel stood at the window. He had removed his coat. A dark shoulder holster was visible over his shirt. Ava stopped in the doorway. Gabriel followed her gaze and put his coat back on. "Sorry," he said. It was such an ordinary word that for a moment the room felt ordinary too. Nico remained in the hallway. He had kept his promise not to enter. Ava walked over to Owen and knelt. "Sweetheart." Owen opened his eyes slowly. "Is it morning? No. Then why are you here? We are going to sleep somewhere different tonight." He pushed himself upright. "Why, there is a problem with our window." His eyes narrowed. "The window is not a pipe." "No. Is Nick fixing it?" Ava glanced toward the open apartment door. Nico stood beyond it, partly hidden by shadow. "He is helping." Owen rubbed one eye. "Does he fix everything?" The question reached farther than the child intended. Ava brushed his hair away from his forehead. "No one fixes everything." Owen considered this. Then he held out his arms. She lifted him. At 5, he was almost too heavy to carry, but fear gave her strength. His cheek settled against her shoulder. His warm breath touched her neck. They left through Elena's rear staircase. No one spoke during the drive. Ava sat in the back seat with Owen asleep against her side. Gabriel drove. Nico followed in another car far enough behind that Owen would not see him if he woke. The apartment above Bellamy Books was small and warm. Bookshelves covered one wall. A green sofa faced a fireplace that had been sealed with brick. 2 bedrooms opened from a narrow hall. There were no family photographs, no expensive furniture, nothing that looked like Nico. Ava checked every window herself. She opened every closet. She tested both exits. Gabriel waited near the door without interrupting. When she finished, he placed a new phone on the kitchen counter. "One number is saved, yours yes, and Nico's no." Ava looked at him. Gabriel's expression remained neutral. "You asked for control," he said. "You call me. I decide whether he needs to know." It was the first arrangement involving Nico that felt designed around her rather than around him. Ava nodded. "Thank you." Gabriel left through the rear stairwell. Nico never came upstairs. Ava saw his car through the front window. It remained across the street until Owen was asleep in the second bedroom. Then it disappeared. The following morning, Owen stood in the apartment kitchen eating cereal from a bowl decorated with yellow flowers. "Are we living here now? No, for how many days I do not know." "Did the window break?" "Not exactly." "Then what happened?" Ava opened the refrigerator, though she knew it was nearly empty. She needed somewhere to look that was not her son's face. Someone was watching our building. Owen stopped chewing. Why, we do not know. Was it a bad person? Ava closed the refrigerator. Maybe. He looked toward the front window. Can they see us here? No. She hoped the answer was true. Owen looked down at his cereal. Is Nick going to stop them? Ava sat across from him. Nick is helping. Why? Because you are his son. The truth rose so quickly that she almost spoke it. Instead, she said, because he knew me a long time ago. Owen stirred his cereal. He must have known you a lot. What makes you say that? He looks at you for a long time. Ava reached for her coffee. It had already gone cold. Saturday arrived beneath a clean blue sky. Harbor and Pine reopened at 8. Ava had considered canceling the meeting. She had considered telling Nico that the photograph changed everything, and Owen could not be near him until Rourke was gone. But Owen was already near Nico's world. Keeping the truth outside the cafe had not kept danger outside the window. At 9:57, Ava saw a dark car stop across the street. Nico stepped out alone. No overcoat, no suit. He wore dark jeans, work boots, and a navy jacket with no visible weapon beneath it. He stood on the sidewalk for several seconds. Through the glass, Ava watched him look at the cafe door as though it required more courage than any room he had entered before. Then the bell sounded. Owen was behind the counter wearing his small apron. He looked up. Brown sugar. Nico glanced at Ava. She understood the reference. So I have been told. Owen pointed toward the stool beside him. You can sit there, but do not move the packets. Nico approached slowly. Ava came around the counter. Owen, this is Nick. He is an old friend. Owen looked from her to Nico. How old? Ava blinked. What? How old is the friend? Nico lowered himself into a crouch so that his eyes were level with Owen's. Very old, according to your sugar rules. Owen's expression remained serious. Mom does not have old friends. The statement cut through the room. Nico did not look away. She did once. Owen studied his face. Do you work with coffee? No, then why are you here? Nico glanced at Ava before answering. To learn. Owen seemed to approve of this. He lifted 2 sugar packets. The white ones go here, brown ones go here. Sometimes people put them back wrong. That sounds difficult. It is not difficult if you pay attention. Nico nodded solemnly. I will pay attention. Ava watched his hands. They rested loosely on his knees. She remembered those hands stained with tomato sauce in her Boston kitchen. She remembered them fastening a necklace at the back of her neck. She remembered the last time she had reached for him and found only silence. Now they were steady in front of a child who shared their shape. Owen handed him 3 brown packets. Nico placed them in the correct row. Owen checked his work. You did it right. Thank you. It is an important job. I can see that. Something changed in Nico's voice. Ava turned toward the espresso machine before either of them saw her face. The meeting lasted 43 minutes. Owen explained the sugar system. He showed Nico the blue star painted beneath his chair. He described a dinosaur called a Styracosaurus, and became offended when Nico confused it with a Triceratops. Nico listened as though nothing else in Providence required his attention. At one point, his phone vibrated. He silenced it without looking. Owen noticed. My mom says you should answer if it is important. Nico looked at Ava. Your mother is usually right? Ava handed him a cup of drip coffee. Usually, the corner of his mouth moved. Owen looked between them. You talk like you are mad, but you are not yelling. Ava nearly dropped the coffee. Nico accepted the cup. Your mother and I are practicing what Nico took a careful breath, listening. Owen nodded. You need more practice. This time Ava did smile. She could not stop it. Nico saw. The smile disappeared almost immediately, but the damage had been done. For 1 second, the distance between 6 years ago and the present narrowed until Ava could see the man beneath the name again. When Nico rose to leave, Owen returned to the sugar packets. He did not hug him. He did not ask him to stay. Ava was relieved. She was disappointed. She hated both feelings. At the door, Nico turned. Thank you. Ava kept her voice low. For what? For letting me meet him. This was not for you, I know. He looked toward Owen one last time. Then he walked outside. Ava watched him cross the street. She did not see a single guard. She knew they were there. 2 days later, Nico came to the cafe carrying a book wrapped in plain brown paper. Ava looked at the package. I said no gifts. It is not expensive. That was not the rule. Nico stopped. He looked at Owen, who was sitting at the back table coloring a dinosaur. Then he placed the package on the counter without pushing it toward him. You are right. The simple surrender disarmed her. What is it, a book about sharks? Ava closed her eyes briefly. Nico noticed. What Owen is afraid of, deep water. His face changed. I did not know. You did not ask. No. He looked at the wrapped book as though it had become evidence of another failure. Ava did not rescue him from the discomfort. Nico picked up the package. I will return it. Owen looked over from the table. What is that a mistake, Nico said. Owen considered this. Can I see? Nico glanced at Ava. She nodded once. He unwrapped the book and showed Owen the cover. A great white shark rose from dark blue water. Owen pulled his feet onto the chair. I do not like that, I understand. Why did you bring it? I thought you might. But you were wrong. Yes. Owen stared at Nico for a moment. Then he returned to his drawing. You can leave it there. Rachel likes scary things. Rachel looked up from the pastry case. I do not like sharks. Owen lowered his voice. You can pretend. Nico took the book when he left. The next time he visited, he brought nothing. He sat at the counter and asked Owen one question. What is the difference between a triceratops and a styracosaurus? Owen stared at him in disbelief. Then he launched into an explanation involving horns frills, time periods, and several facts Ava suspected were invented. Nico listened for 12 uninterrupted minutes. He asked 2 questions afterward. Both were serious. Owen talked for another 7. The visits developed a rhythm. Tuesday mornings, Saturday after the rush. Nico ordered plain coffee and sat wherever Ava directed him. He never took the table near the front window because Mrs. Whitmore had occupied it every morning for 3 years. He never entered the space behind the counter without permission. He learned that Owen preferred sandwiches cut into squares. He learned that the boy hated the sound of the blender but loved watching bread rise in the kitchen. He learned that Owen became silent when other fathers arrived at school. That last fact came from Gabriel. Nico did not mention it to Ava. She knew anyway. One Tuesday, Nico helped tighten the loose leg on Owen's stool. He removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and knelt on the floor with a screwdriver. Owen stood over him, supervising. You are doing it too tight. Nico loosened the screw. Like that, no. Now it is too loose. Nico adjusted it again. Owen pushed the stool. It did not wobble. That is good. High praise. What does that mean? It means I am honored. Owen nodded. You can fix the napkin holder next. Ava stood at the espresso machine with her back to them. She listened to Nico ask for instructions. She listened to Owen give them. The sound filled a place in the cafe she had not known was empty. That evening, a storm rolled over Providence. Rain struck the windows hard enough to blur the streetlights. Wind shook the dark blue door in its frame. Rachel left early. Elena took Owen upstairs to watch a movie. Nico remained at the counter until the lights flickered. Then the cafe went dark. The espresso machine died with a low sigh. Ava found 2 battery lanterns beneath the sink. She placed one on the counter and another near the door. Without the usual sounds, Harbor and Pine felt older, more intimate. Nico stood in the warm circle of light with his hands in his pockets. You should go, Ava said. The streets are flooding. You have a car. I also have patience. She wiped down a surface that was already clean. You never had patience. I had control. I thought they were the same thing. Ava stopped moving. Rain beat against the glass. Nico looked toward the dark windows. Vincent lied to me. Her fingers tightened around the cloth. About what you? Ava said nothing. He told me you left because you could not accept what I had become. Did you believe him? Yes. The answer hurt more than she expected. Nico continued. I'd been shot. I was unconscious for 2 days. When I woke, you were gone. Vincent said he had spoken to you on my behalf. He spoke for himself. I know that now. Ava placed the cloth beside the sink. You could have asked me. I could not find you. You stopped trying. Nico looked at her. I found a woman in Montreal with your first name. I found an apartment in Hartford rented under your mother's maiden name. I found a hospital record that might have been yours, but by the time I reached it, the address was empty. Ava's throat tightened. You were looking for me for 3 years, then why stop? Every search created a trail. Every person I sent could be followed. I told myself that if you had built a life away from me, finding you would only put you in danger again. You decided silence was protection. Yes, it was abandonment. Nico lowered his eyes. Yes, the word remained between them. No argument, no excuse, only the truth. Ava felt the anger she had carried for 6 years shift inside her. It did not disappear. It simply lost one of the shapes she had given it. You should have trusted me enough to choose, she said. I should have. You should have told me what was happening before Vincent ever came to my apartment. Yes, you made loving you feel like standing outside a locked room. Nico looked up. I know. This time she did not tell him to stop saying it. The lights returned with a sudden click. The espresso machine began humming. The ordinary sounds of the cafe rushed back around them. Nico reached for his jacket. Ava watched him put it on. At the door, he paused. I do not expect you to forgive me. Good. I only want the chance to stop repeating it. He left before she could answer. That night, Ava called her mother. Margaret answered in a sleepy voice. Ava, what do you do when something you buried starts breathing again? There was a pause. Is this about Nicholas DeLuca? Ava sat at the small kitchen table in the apartment above the bookstore. You remember him? Honey men like that are difficult to forget. Ava told her enough. She told her about the cafe, the photograph, the school, and the meetings with Owen. She did not describe the way Nico looked while tightening the stool. She did not describe how natural his voice sounded when he spoke to their son. Some truth still felt too dangerous to say aloud. Has he changed? Margaret asked. I do not know. Then do not trust the man he says he has become. Ava closed her eyes. What am I supposed to trust? Watch the choices he makes when the cost is high. After the call ended, Ava remained at the table. Owen's bedroom door stood partly open. She could see one small foot beneath the blanket. The following Tuesday, Nico did not come to the cafe. Owen looked towards the door every time the bell rang. At 10:30, he asked, Is Nick coming? Not today. Why, he had work. Owen moved a white sugar packet into the brown row, then corrected it. Did he stop liking the coffee? No. Did he stop liking my job? Ava's chest tightened. No, sweetheart. Owen looked toward the window. He has my eyes. Ava went still. The cafe continued around them. A spoon struck porcelain. The grinder started behind Rachel. A truck moved past outside. What did you say? Owen touched one finger beneath his right eye. His eyes are like mine. Ava searched his face. He did not look frightened, only thoughtful. He also looks at me for a long time, Owen said. Ava sat on the stool beside him. Does that bother you? No. He arranged another packet. Elena looks at her grandson like that. Ava could not speak. Owen leaned closer. Is Nick family? The question entered the quiet life Ava had built and waited there. She looked at the dark blue door, at the chair Nico had repaired, at the coffee cup he used twice a week. She had once believed the greatest danger was that Nico might enter Owen's life and bring his enemies with him. Now she understood there was another danger. Owen was beginning to love him, and love gave people a reason to stay. It also gave them the power to leave. That thought followed Ava through the rest of the morning. It stayed with her while she steamed milk, counted change, and watched Owen straighten the sugar packets Nico had touched. It followed her home that evening and sat beside her while she checked the locks twice. Owen did not ask about Nico again. That somehow made the question heavier. Is Nick family? Ava had spent years preparing answers for questions about fathers. She had imagined Owen asking why other children had someone waiting beside their mothers at school. She had imagined explaining that families could be whole even when they looked different. She had never prepared to explain a father who had returned. The next morning began like any other. Ava woke before 5 in the apartment above Bellamy Books. She dressed in the dark, packed Owen's lunch, and carried him downstairs while he slept against her shoulder. Gabriel waited near the rear entrance. He opened the car door for them. Quiet night, Ava asked. Quiet enough? She had learned that Gabriel never described anything as completely safe. It was one of the reasons she trusted him. At Harbor and Pine, Rachel arrived at 6. Owen sat at the back table eating toast while Ava prepared the first batch of coffee. By 7:30, the cafe had filled with regular customers. Mrs. Whitmore occupied her usual table beside the window. 2 nurses from Rhode Island Hospital shared a blueberry scone near the register. A construction crew crowded around the back table, laughing loudly enough that Owen covered one ear. The room smelled of coffee cinnamon and wet wool. Ordinary sounds, ordinary people. Ava allowed herself to breathe. At 9:15, Gabriel entered and ordered coffee. He sat near the door with his newspaper. Ava noticed he did not open it. "What is wrong?" she asked when she carried over his cup. "Nothing yet." "That is not an answer. There was an accident near St. Matthew's." Her attention sharpened. "What kind of accident?" "2 cars. No serious injuries. Owen is here." "I know." Gabriel looked through the front window. A delivery truck had stopped across the street. Its rear doors were open. The driver stood on the sidewalk speaking into his phone. Gabriel's eyes rested on him for 1 second too long. Ava lowered her voice. "Is that your man, Noah?" The bell above the door rang. A woman entered carrying a crying toddler. Gabriel watched her hands, then looked away. Ava returned behind the counter. She told herself not to react. Security had made her sensitive to movements that once meant nothing. Every parked car seemed deliberate. Every stranger's coat appeared large enough to hide a weapon. At 9:23, her phone vibrated. A message from St. Matthew's appeared on the screen. "Owen Bennett has been injured. Please come to the main office immediately." Ava stared at it. The room around her became distant. Owen was sitting 10 feet away, drawing at the back table. She looked at him, then at the message. It had been sent from the same number the school used for emergency notifications. Gabriel stood. His hand moved beneath his coat. "What is it?" Ava showed him the screen. He read it once. "Do not answer. He is right there." "I know." "Then why send it to make you leave?" The delivery driver across the street closed the truck doors. Gabriel reached for his phone. At that exact moment, a car struck another vehicle at the intersection. Metal folded with a violent sound. People near the windows stood. Mrs. Whitmore gasped. The delivery truck pulled away. Gabriel looked toward the crash. A man climbed from one of the damaged cars and began shouting. Another remained behind the wheel. Gabriel spoke into his phone. "Check the intersection. Keep the boy inside." Ava heard the rear kitchen door open. She turned. Rachel emerged, carrying a tray of clean cups. "There is someone in the alley." Gabriel moved toward the back. "Lock the front door." Ava did not ask why. She crossed the cafe and reached for the lock. The door opened before her hand reached it. 2 men entered. The first wore a brown coat. Ava recognized him from St. Matthew's. The second man wore a dark suit and held one hand inside his jacket. Gabriel stopped halfway to the kitchen. The man in the brown coat smiled. "Mr. Shaw." Gabriel shifted slightly, placing himself between the men and Owen. "You chose a crowded place. We chose her place." Ava looked toward the customers. No one spoke. The construction workers had stopped laughing. Rachel stood near the pastry case with both hands around the tray. Owen looked up from his drawing. Ava moved in front of him. "We are closed," she said. The stranger's smile widened. "Not yet." He turned the lock behind him. The man in the suit pulled the blinds. Gabriel's hand remained beneath his coat. The stranger noticed. "You can draw first. Maybe you take one of us. Maybe both. But someone in this room gets hurt." Ava felt Owen's fingers close around the back of her apron. She reached behind her and covered his hand. "Rachel," she said quietly. "Take Owen to the kitchen." The man in the brown coat shook his head. "The boy stays where we can see him." Ava looked at him. "What do you want?" "Malcolm Rourke wants a conversation with Nicholas DeLuca." "Then call him. You are the call." The second man moved toward Gabriel. Gabriel's eyes followed him. Ava understood the balance in the room. Gabriel could act, but not without risking Owen. The men knew it. That was why they had chosen the cafe. They had turned every customer into a weapon against the man protecting them. Ava looked toward the counter. Beneath the register was the silent alarm Nico had installed after the photograph appeared. She had argued against it. Now it was 6 feet away. The man in the brown coat followed her gaze. "Do not." Ava met his eyes. What his hand moved beneath his coat? She smiled without warmth. "You are standing in a cafe full of boiling water and glass. You should be more specific." Before he could answer, Ava reached for the nearest coffee pot. She threw it toward the floor. The glass shattered. Hot coffee spread across the wood. The man in the suit jumped back. Ava grabbed Owen and pushed him toward Rachel. "Kitchen. Now." Gabriel drew his weapon. The man in the brown coat fired first. The shot struck the ceiling. Plaster rained across the tables. Customers screamed and dropped to the floor. Gabriel drove his shoulder into the second man before he could aim. They crashed into the pastry case. Glass cracked beneath their weight. Rachel pulled Owen through the kitchen door. Ava moved behind the counter. The man in the brown coat followed. She reached under the register and pressed the alarm. His hand closed around her wrist. He dragged her forward. "You should have stayed quiet." Ava brought her knee up hard. He turned enough to avoid the full impact, but his grip loosened. She tore free and grabbed the metal milk pitcher beside the espresso machine. He reached for her again. She struck him across the face. The pitcher rang against bone. Blood appeared near his eyebrow. His expression changed. The smile vanished. He lunged. Ava pulled the steam lever. A white burst of vapor filled the narrow space. The man cursed and covered his face. She threw herself toward the kitchen door. His hand caught the back of her shirt. The fabric tightened against her throat. Ava reached for anything she could find. Her fingers closed around a tray. She swung it backward. The edge struck his mouth. He released her. Behind the pastry case, Gabriel and the other man fought across broken glass. A table overturned. Mrs. Whitmore crawled toward the front wall. The man in the brown coat grabbed Ava's hair. Pain tore across her scalp. He pulled her against his chest and pressed a gun beneath her jaw. The room stopped. Gabriel froze with one knee against the other man's back. "Put it down," the stranger said. Gabriel did not move. "Put it down or she dies." Ava could hear the man breathing near her ear, fast, angry. His grip was too tight. He had lost control of the situation, and men who lost control became careless. Ava looked toward the kitchen. The door remained closed. Owen was behind it. That was all that mattered. Gabriel lowered his gun. The stranger pushed Ava toward the front door. "You are coming with us." "No," she said. The gun pressed harder. That was not a question. He moved her around the spilled coffee. Ava let her knees weaken. Her weight dropped suddenly. The man stumbled forward. Gabriel moved. Ava twisted and drove her elbow into the wounded side of the stranger's face. His gun fired. The bullet struck the espresso machine. Steam exploded through the room. Gabriel crossed the distance in 2 steps. He hit the man's wrist against the counter until the weapon fell. The other attacker rose behind him. Before Ava could warn Gabriel, the side door burst open. Nico entered. He wore no coat. Rain darkened his hair and shoulders. A pistol rested steadily in his hand. 2 men followed him, but Nico reached the room first. The second attacker stopped. Every sound in the cafe seemed to disappear. Nico looked at Ava, at the blood near her temple, at the torn collar of her shirt, at the gun on the floor. Then he looked at the man who had held her. The stranger saw death in Nico's face. So did Ava. Nico crossed the room. He struck the man once. The force sent him against the counter. Nico caught him before he fell and drove him to the floor. The stranger tried to speak. Nico hit him again. Nico, he did not hear her, or he chose not to. The man raised one hand to protect his face. Nico pulled him upright and slammed him against the damaged espresso machine. Blood spread across the stranger's mouth. "Nico." Ava stepped closer. Gabriel looked at her. "Stay back." She ignored him. Nico pressed the barrel of his gun beneath the man's chin. The stranger began to shake. Ava saw Owen's small face in her mind. She saw him asking whether Nick fixed everything. She saw the way he waited for the cafe door to open on Tuesdays. "Nico, stop." His finger remained near the trigger. "He came for you." His voice did not sound human. Ava moved between them. The gun lowered slightly, but the rage in Nico's eyes remained. She placed one hand against his chest. "Owen needs a father who knows when to stop." Nico looked at her. For one terrible moment, she did not know which man would answer. The one who had listened to Owen explain dinosaurs, or the one Providence feared? His breathing slowed. He lowered the gun. Gabriel took the stranger from him and forced him to the floor. Nico looked toward the kitchen. Where is Owen with Rachel? Is he hurt? No. Only then did Nico close his eyes. His forehead touched Ava's for a single second. The contact was not romantic. It was relief with nowhere else to go. Police sirens sounded in the distance. Nico stepped away before they arrived. His men cleared the weapons from the floor and removed anything connecting the attackers to the DeLuca organization. Gabriel remained. He would speak to the police as a licensed security consultant who happened to be present during an attempted robbery. It was not the truth. It was close enough to survive questions. Ava entered the kitchen. Rachel sat on the floor beside the storage shelves with Owen held against her chest. His hands covered his ears. His eyes found Ava immediately. "Mom!" She knelt and pulled him into her arms. He touched the blood near her temple. "You are hurt. I am all right." There were loud sounds. "I know." Was Nick here? Ava looked toward the kitchen door. Nico stood on the other side of the glass. He could see Owen. He did not enter. "Yes," Ava said. "Did he fix it?" Her throat tightened. He helped. Owen rested his face against her shoulder. Nico turned away. The police kept Ava at the cafe for nearly 3 hours. By the time she returned to the apartment above Bellamy Books, Owen had fallen asleep in Gabriel's car. Ava carried him upstairs and placed him in bed. Nico waited in the kitchen. A bruise darkened one of his knuckles. He had washed the blood from his hands. Ava stood across from him. "What happens now?" "We find Rourke." And then Nico looked toward Owen's closed bedroom door. "Then this ends." Ava heard the certainty in his voice. She also heard the violence beneath it. "You stop today, because you asked me. Will you stop when I am not there?" Nico did not answer immediately. Before he could, Gabriel entered through the rear door. The man from the cafe talked. Nico's expression changed. "Where is Rourke?" Gabriel placed a phone on the table. "He wants you to call." Nico dialed the number. Rourke answered after one ring. His voice was calm and almost friendly. "You have something I want," he said. Nico looked at Ava. "The dock corridor. Transfer it by midnight. Every warehouse permit and company attached to it. And if I do, the photographs disappear. The woman and the child stop being useful." Ava watched Nico's face. The corridor represented years of expansion. She had heard enough during her time with him to understand what territory meant. Money, authority, reputation, the ability to keep other men afraid. Nico asked, "How do I know you keep your word?" "You do not." Rourke ended the call. Gabriel spoke first. "If you surrender the corridor, every family between Boston and Baltimore will think you can be pressured." Nico looked toward Owen's room. "Can the transfer be completed tonight?" "Yes." "Then complete it." Gabriel stared at him. "That route is worth millions. I did not ask what it was worth. You give this away and someone else will test you." Nico's voice remained quiet. "They already did." He looked at Ava. "They used him." The word did not sound like ownership. It sounded like pain. Gabriel picked up the phone. Nico stopped him. "Send Rourke's financial records to the federal office in New York. Every account connected to his transport companies. He will know it came from us. He will be too busy surviving to care." Gabriel understood. Rourke would receive the corridor, but the accounts needed to operate it would be frozen. His partners would lose money. His allies would abandon him before law enforcement reached his door. Nico was not surrendering. He was choosing a battlefield that would not pass through Owen's school. Gabriel left to arrange the transfer. Ava remained in the kitchen. "You gave it up." "Yes." "For Owen." "Yes." "You do not know whether I will ever let you be part of his life?" "No." Then why Nico looked at her as though the answer should have been obvious. "Because he is alive whether you forgive me or not." A knock sounded at the rear door. Nico opened it. Vincent Hale stood outside. He looked older than Ava remembered. His hair had gone silver near the temples, but his expression had not changed. He entered and stopped when he saw her. Ava. Her body remembered him before her mind did. The cold kitchen, the photographs, the unanswered phone. Nico looked between them. "You told me she left by choice." Vincent's face remained composed. She did leave. You went to her apartment. I prevented a weakness from becoming a disaster. Ava stepped closer. You told me Nico sent you. I allowed you to believe what was necessary. Nico's voice dropped. You hid her from me. Vincent turned to him. I protected you. Your father would have done the same. My father died believing fear was loyalty. He built everything you control, and you nearly destroyed the only thing worth controlling it for. Vincent glanced toward Owen's bedroom. Understanding entered his face, then contempt. A child does not change what you are. Nico stepped between Vincent and the hallway. No, he changes what I choose. Vincent gave a humorless laugh. You surrendered the corridor. Yes, for her, for my son. The words settled into the room. Ava did not correct him. Vincent saw that too. Nico opened the door. You are finished. You cannot remove me after 30 years. I just did. Vincent's face hardened. What do you expect me to do, live with being irrelevant? For a man like Vincent, it was a colder sentence than death. He left without another word. The following morning, Ava sat beside Owen on the green sofa. The television played a cartoon without sound. She held his hand between both of hers. There is something I need to tell you about Nick. Owen looked up. Did he fix the window? This is not about the window. Ava chose every word carefully. Nick and I knew each other before you were born. We cared about each other very much. Then something frightening happened and I left. Because of the bad people, yes? Owen looked down at their joined hands. Did Nick know where you went? No. Did he know about me? Not until recently. Owen was silent. Ava could hear the clock above the kitchen doorway. Finally, she said, Nick is your father. Owen did not move. He stared at the muted television. A dinosaur crossed the screen wearing a red hat. Does he know he does now? Did he leave because of me? Ava took his face between her hands. No, never. Nothing that happened was because of you. Why was he not here? Because adults made choices out of fear. Some of those choices were wrong. Owen leaned against her. Is he going away again? Ava pressed her lips to his hair. That is something Nick has to answer with what he does. That afternoon, Nico entered Harbor and Pine through the damaged front door. A board covered one window. The espresso machine was silent. Owen stood behind the counter in his apron. Nico saw his expression and stopped. This time it was not shock that held him still. It was understanding. He approached slowly and knelt. Owen looked directly into his eyes. Are you my dad? Yes. Were you bad at knowing Nico's throat moved? Yes, I was very bad at knowing. Are you going away? Nico glanced at Ava. Then he looked back at Owen. I will never disappear without telling you where I am. I will keep coming back for as long as you want me to. Owen thought about this. Then he picked up a handful of sugar packets and held them out. You can help until I decide. Nico accepted them with both hands. He sat on the cafe floor while Owen explained where each color belonged. Ava watched the most powerful man she had ever known follow the instructions of a 5-year-old boy. Nico placed one packet in the wrong row. Owen corrected him. Nico moved it without argument, then he reached for the next one. Owen watched carefully as Nico placed a white sugar packet in the correct row. That one is right, he said. Nico nodded. I am improving. You still have to practice. I have been told that before. Ava stood beside the damaged espresso machine, one hand resting against the counter. Nico did not look at her when he said it, but the words reached her anyway. Practice. Listening. Staying. Learning how to enter a life without taking control of it. Outside, a truck moved slowly through the rain. Its tires whispered across the wet pavement. Inside Harbor and Pine, the broken front window had been covered with plywood, and cold air found its way through the edges. The cafe looked wounded. A chair lay on its side near the pastry case. One table had a deep crack across its surface. Coffee stains darkened the floor where the pot had shattered. Yet Owen sat among the damage as if the room were still safe. Perhaps that was what safety meant to a child. Not a place where nothing terrible happened. A place where the people he trusted remained after it did. Nico finished arranging the sugar packets and rose from the floor. Owen examined the rows one final time. You did okay. Thank you. That does not mean you are in charge. Nico glanced at Ava. I understand. Owen removed his apron and hung it on the hook beside the kitchen door. Can Nick come when we fix the window? Ava looked at Nico. He did not answer for her. He can help if he follows instructions, she said. Owen nodded. He needs a lot of those. For the first time that morning, Nico smiled fully. It changed his face. For one brief second, he no longer looked like Nicholas DeLuca, the man whose decisions moved money weapons and frightened men across state lines. He looked like a father who had just been allowed to return tomorrow. The neighborhood began repairing Harbor and Pine before Ava asked. By 8 the next morning, Mr. Caruso from the hardware store stood outside measuring the damaged window. The two nurses who came in every weekday brought coffee from another shop and apologized as if buying it elsewhere were a betrayal. Mrs. Whitmore arrived carrying a tin of butter cookies. You need to eat, she told Ava. I have food. You have coffee and anxiety. Neither counts. She placed the tin on the counter and claimed her usual chair even though the front window was still covered with wood. Rachel's brother arrived after school. He was 17 and, as promised, very tall. He carried broken chairs into the alley while Rachel swept glass from beneath the pastry case for the 4th time. Elena brought enough baked pasta to feed everyone on the block. By noon, Harbor and Pine smelled less like smoke and broken machinery and more like tomato sauce sawdust and strong coffee brewed through a small backup machine. Gabriel returned at 12:30. He wore his gray coat and carried a fresh newspaper. A faint bruise marked his jaw. He took his usual table near the door. Ava placed a black coffee in front of him. He looked at the cup. I did not order. You never do. He reached into his pocket. Ava held out her hand. $4. Gabriel raised one eyebrow. You said I did not have to pay. That was before you let someone fire a gun into my espresso machine. I did not let him. The machine disagrees. Gabriel placed $5 in her hand. Ava gave one back. He looked at the dollar, then at her. You are charging me exactly. You are a customer now. Something close to warmth appeared in his careful eyes. He folded the dollar into his wallet. Then the coffee should be better. Ava turned away before he saw her smile. Nico arrived after the cafe closed. He did not bring contractors. He did not bring money. He carried a wooden toolbox that looked old enough to have belonged to his father. Ava stood in the doorway and examined it. You own tools. I have been known to touch them. Successfully, not always. Owen appeared behind her wearing safety glasses that were too large for his face. I am supervising. Nico looked at him. That makes me feel much safer. Owen handed him a list written in blue crayon. The letters leaned in different directions. Fixed shelf, fixed stool, no sharks. Nico read it twice. The third item seems unrelated. It is still important. Nico folded the paper carefully and placed it in his shirt pocket. They worked until evening. Nico repaired the shelf near the pastry case. Owen stood beside him and offered instructions that changed every few minutes. Ava painted over scratches near the kitchen door. She watched Nico from the corner of her eye. He did not take over. When Mr. Caruso explained that the window frame could not be repaired and needed to be replaced, Nico did not call someone else for a second opinion. When Rachel suggested moving the pastry case to create more space near the entrance, he did not speak until Ava asked what he thought. It should not have surprised her that a man capable of commanding rooms could also remain quiet, yet it did. At 7, Owen fell asleep on 2 chairs pushed together. His safety glasses remained crooked across his face. Nico noticed first. He set down the drill and walked toward him. Then he stopped. He looked at Ava. The question passed silently between them. Ava nodded. Nico lifted Owen carefully. The boy stirred and placed one arm around his neck. Nico became completely still. Ava remembered the first morning he had entered the cafe, the shock on his face when Owen looked up, the way a man who feared nothing had forgotten how to move. Now he held his son as if every breath required permission. Owen opened his eyes slightly. Did you fix the shelf? Yes. Good. His eyes closed again. Nico carried him upstairs to Elena's apartment. Ava followed. At the doorway, Elena stepped aside. She watched Nico place Owen on the sofa and remove his shoes. He tied the loose laces before setting them neatly on the floor. Ava noticed. Nico noticed her noticing. Neither of them spoke. The repairs took 12 days. During that time, Rourke's organization began collapsing. Ava learned only what Nico believed she needed to know, but this time he asked what she wanted to hear. She chose the truth. Not every detail, enough to understand the danger surrounding her son. Federal agents raided 2 warehouses in New Jersey and 1 outside Baltimore. Rourke's financial accounts were frozen. Several of his partners disappeared before they could be questioned. Malcolm Rourke was arrested near Albany while trying to cross into Canada using another man's passport. His photograph appeared on the evening news. Owen was building a tower from wooden blocks when the report began. Ava changed the channel. Nico called later that night. "He is in federal custody," he said. "Can he reach us? No. Can his people, some of them, still exist?" Ava looked toward the living room. Owen had fallen asleep beneath the glow of the television. "So this is not over. The immediate threat is—" "That is not what I asked." Nico was quiet. "No," he said. "My life does not become safe because one man is gone." Ava appreciated the answer even as it frightened her. "What are you going to do? I have already started." He told her that the DeLuca family would withdraw from weapons transport completely. Several businesses used to move illegal cargo would be closed or transferred into legitimate freight companies. The docks would remain under DeLuca ownership, but their books would be handled by independent accountants. Nico would remove men who refused the changes. Some would leave quietly. Others might not. "You cannot turn everything legitimate in a week," Ava said. "No, then do not pretend you can. I am not." His voice held no offense. "It will take time. There will be resistance. I cannot erase what I inherited or what I chose to become." Ava leaned against the kitchen counter. "Why are you telling me this? Because my silence cost you 6 years." The words settled quietly between them. He continued, "You decide what risks are acceptable around Owen. You cannot decide if you do not know they exist." For years, Ava had imagined what an apology from Nico might sound like. She had imagined dramatic words. Regret spoken beneath rain. Promises that would make the past feel less permanent. Instead, he gave her information. He gave her the right to be frightened by the truth. It mattered more than she wanted it to. Harbor and Pine reopened on a Monday morning. The new front window shone beneath a pale winter sky. Rachel had rewritten the menu board and drawn a small coffee cup in the corner. The repaired tables did not match. They never had. Ava unlocked the dark blue door at 5:30. The bell rang above her. She stood alone in the cafe for a moment. The room smelled of fresh wood coffee beans and paint. No blood, no broken glass, no smoke. She placed both hands on the counter and allowed herself one deep breath. At 6, Gabriel arrived. At 6:10, the nurses came in. At 6:15, Mrs. Whitmore reclaimed her table and complained that the new window allowed too much sunlight. By 7, the room was full. Owen stood behind the counter in his apron. He arranged the sugar packets while customers greeted him like a returning employee. At 7:40, the bell rang again. Nico entered. He wore a dark coat and carried no visible gift. Owen looked up. "You are late." Nico checked his watch. "By how much? 3 minutes. I apologize. Do not do it again." Nico glanced toward Ava. She placed a cup of drip coffee on the counter. "He remembers promises. I remember being warned." Nico paid for the coffee. Ava pushed the money back. He looked at her. "You worked on the shelf. That was not the price. It is today." He accepted the coffee without arguing. That became their new rhythm. Nico came on Tuesday mornings and Saturday afternoons. Sometimes he stayed 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. He did not appear without sending Ava a message first. He never brought men inside. When Owen asked questions about his work, Nico answered carefully but did not lie. "I own shipping companies," he said. "Do you drive the trucks?" "No." "Then what do you do?" "I make decisions." Owen frowned. "That is not a real job." Ava covered her mouth with one hand. Nico considered the criticism. "What would make it real? You should carry boxes." The next Saturday, Nico arrived before opening and helped unload coffee beans from a delivery truck. Owen watched from the doorway. When the final bag had been carried inside, he nodded with approval. Now it is a job. Nico leaned against the counter, breathing harder than he wanted anyone to notice. "I am glad we resolved that." Owen began calling him Dad 3 weeks later. There was no ceremony, no emotional announcement. Nico was sitting at the back table helping him build a bridge from wooden blocks. One side collapsed. Owen sighed. "Dad, you put the long one in the wrong place." Nico's hand stopped above the blocks. Ava heard the word from behind the espresso machine. She looked up. Nico did not react immediately. He placed the block down carefully. "You are right," he said. "Show me where it goes." Owen moved it for him. The bridge held. Nico kept his eyes on the blocks until he could trust his face. Ava turned toward the coffee machine and pretended to clean a cup that was already clean. That evening, Nico remained outside after closing. Snow had begun falling over Providence. Small white flakes settled on the sidewalk and melted against the cafe window. Ava locked the door, then opened it again. "You can come inside." Nico entered. The room was quiet. Owen was upstairs with Elena. Rachel had gone home. Ava stood behind the counter. Nico took his usual place on the other side. He placed a folder between them. "What is this?" "Something my attorney prepared." Ava did not touch it. "What kind of something?" "A statement that I will not seek custody or make changes to Owen's legal records without your agreement." Her eyes moved to his. "Nico, it does not remove my legal rights. Nothing can do that completely. But it creates consequences if I act without speaking to you. You do not have to give me this. Yes, I do. Why? Because you need to know I will not use my name, money, or lawyers to take control of his life." Ava opened the folder. The document was signed. His name appeared at the bottom in dark ink. "You already signed it." "Yes." "What if I never give you more than Tuesday mornings and Saturdays?" Pain crossed his face. "Then I become reliable on Tuesdays and Saturdays." She closed the folder. "You make that sound easy." "It is not." Nico stepped closer to the counter but did not cross around it. "Nothing about watching him grow from a distance is easy. Nothing about knowing I missed his first 5 years is easy." His voice remained controlled, but Ava heard the strain beneath it. "I do not know his first word. I do not know what he looked like when he learned to walk. I was not there when he was sick or frightened. I cannot repair those things by wanting them badly enough." Ava looked down. His first word was light. Nico became still. He was 10 months old. The sun came through the blinds in our first apartment, and he kept opening and closing his hand at it. Nico listened. "He walked at 14 months, Ava continued. He took 3 steps toward a plate of cookies and fell into the table. The corner of Nico's mouth moved. Was he hurt? He cried for 30 seconds, then took the cookie. That sounds like him. It sounds like you." Silence filled the cafe. Ava had guarded those memories because they were hers. She had earned them through exhaustion fear and mornings when no one arrived to help. Sharing them felt like opening a locked room. Nico did not ask for more. That was why she continued. His first fever was 103. He was 8 months old. I walked him through the apartment all night because he cried whenever I put him down. Nico's face tightened. I should have been there, yes. Ava met his eyes. You should have been there for all of it. I know I am still angry. You should be. I hate that you can walk in now and make him smile when I spent years doing everything alone. Nico did not look away. I hate that you miss the hardest nights, but you get to arrive for dinosaurs and sugar packets. Yes, I hate that part of me is relieved when you enter the room. His breathing changed. Ava pressed her palms against the counter. I hate that your return makes me question a life I worked very hard to accept. Nico remained silent until she finished. Then he said, You carried everything because I was not there. I will not ask you to carry forgiveness before you are ready. The room seemed to narrow around them. Ava had expected him to ask for hope, for a chance, for proof that his efforts mattered. Instead, he allowed her anger to remain. He did not ask her to make his guilt easier to bear. She looked toward the dark blue door. Snow gathered along the bottom of the window. What do you want from me? She asked. The truth. You may not like it. I probably will not. Ava almost smiled. And what else, Thursday? She looked back at him. What is Thursday Owen's school presentation? Ava stared. How do you know about that? He invited me. He did this afternoon. He said he is playing a dinosaur and that my attendance is required. Ava folded her arms. He will remember if you are not there. I will be there. You cannot send someone to explain if work comes up. I know. You cannot arrive after it starts. I know. You cannot promise him and disappear. Nico's voice lowered. I will be there. Ava studied him. Then start with Thursday. The school auditorium smelled of dust paper and floor polish. Parents crowded into narrow folding chairs. Children whispered behind a blue curtain decorated with painted trees. Ava sat in the front row. The empty chair beside her seemed larger each time she looked at it. The presentation began at 2. At 1:45, Nico had not arrived. At 1:50, Ava checked her phone. No message. At 1:54, the principal stepped onto the stage and adjusted the microphone. Ava's chest tightened. She told herself there could be traffic. A meeting. An emergency. Every explanation sounded like an old excuse. At 1:56, the auditorium door opened. Nico entered. He wore a dark suit beneath a winter coat. Snow covered his shoulders. He had no security beside him. He crossed the room quietly and sat in the empty chair. "I am sorry," he whispered. "You're not late." "I almost was." "What happened?" "A meeting would not end." Ava looked at him, and I left. The lights dimmed. The curtain opened. Children walked onto the stage wearing paper costumes. Owen appeared near the back in a green dinosaur suit with cardboard spikes attached to his shoulders. He scanned the audience. His eyes found Ava. Then they moved to Nico. His nervous face changed. He smiled. Nico stopped breathing. Ava saw it happen again, the same stillness as the morning he first entered the cafe. But this time it was not shock that held him. It was belonging. Owen forgot one of his lines. He looked toward Nico. Nico gave him a small nod. Owen remembered. After the presentation, children rushed into the audience. Owen ran toward them, his paper tail twisting behind him. "You came." Nico knelt. "I said I would. I was a Styracosaurus. I noticed the horns. They are spikes. I still need practice. A lot." Owen took Ava's hand. Then he reached for Nico's coat sleeve. He did not take his hand. Not yet. The three of them walked back toward Federal Hill beneath a cold white sky. Owen stayed in the middle, talking about the presentation without pausing for breath. At Harbor and Pine, he ran ahead. He pushed open the dark blue door. The bell rang. Nico stopped at the threshold. 6 years earlier, Ava had disappeared because loving him had made her a target. 6 weeks earlier, he had entered this cafe and seen a child with his eyes. Now he stood outside a life that no longer belonged only to Ava and Owen, a life he could not claim, a life he could only be invited into. Owen turned back. "Are you coming?" Nico looked at Ava. He waited. Ava remembered the hospital room where she had held Owen alone, the apartment with the broken heater, the nights measured by medicine rent and unanswered fear. She remembered Nico on the cafe floor arranging sugar packets beneath Owen's serious supervision. She remembered the gun lowering because she asked him to stop. She remembered the signed document on the counter. Thursday. He had started with Thursday. Ava held out her hand. Nico looked at it for a moment before taking it. His fingers closed around hers carefully. No ownership, no demand, only an answer. Together they stepped through the dark blue door. Owen ran behind the counter and reached for his apron. Nico removed his coat. Ava switched on the espresso machine. It came alive with a low, familiar hum. Outside, snow continued falling over Providence. Inside, the coffee was warm, the repaired window held, and the three of them stood beneath the soft cafe lights with no promises larger than the day in front of them. For 6 years, Ava had built her life around having enough. Enough money to keep the doors open, enough strength to raise Owen, enough happiness to keep going when the nights felt too long. Enough had kept her alive. But as Owen handed Nico a fistful of sugar packets and began explaining the rules again, Ava allowed herself to reach for something beyond survival. Nico placed the first packet in the correct row. Owen nodded. Ava remained beside them. And this time no one left. "You do not know what you are asking." "I know exactly what I am asking." "No, you know what you lost. That is not the same as knowing him." Nico said nothing. Ava picked up the sugar packet and placed it back in the row. "He hates loud rooms. He will not eat eggs if the yolk is visible. He sleeps with the closet light on, but insists he is not afraid of the dark. When he is worried, he organizes things. When he is angry, he becomes very polite." Nico listened without moving. He asks questions until you think there cannot possibly be another question, then he asks 6 more. He remembers every promise, even the small ones. Ava faced him. So do not make one unless you intend to keep it. Nico's voice was low. I intend to keep him alive. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The cafe held the faint smell of espresso rain and the blueberry muffin Owen had left unfinished. Ava looked at the photographs again. Her apartment, the school, her son walking beneath an open sky while someone watched from a parked car. The life she had built was still standing, but for the first time she could see how much glass surrounded it. She slid the photographs back across the counter. Explain the protection plan. Nico pulled out the chair opposite her. This time he waited until she sat before taking his seat.